old friend of mine, and he's going to tell you some of his experiences in supporting the lookout system in the Willapa Harbor area and in the Elbe area. So go for it, Cliff.
I started with the old Division of Forestry in 1949 at Nacelle, and we supported a lookout, the Hull Creek lookout at Nacelle. And it was on the headwaters of some slough that came in around Cathlamet somewhere and the Nacelle River. And for the life of me, I couldn't tell you how to get there now, but we supported that lookout, and that was the only contact I had by radio at Nacelle. And we had one of the little gray box radios and throw the antenna up over a limb when we had a fire or something to report to Raymond. During my stay at Nacelle, which was 2 years, I think that they constructed a lookout, one of the newer modern lookouts on the ridge above Nacelle. We call it Radar Ridge. I don't know what the name of the ridge is, but that's where they built the military built a radar station there. I constructed, myself with a couple young fellows, constructed a telephone line to this lookout. I didn't have anything to do with servicing that lookout, but we had I can remember the problems we had constructing this telephone line because the elk kept getting wound up in our wire and pulling the telephone line down. And that was quite an experience. Then I went on up and was stationed at Raymond, and we serviced the Packsack lookout, which is in the upper Smith Creek, North River area. And again, it was a long time ago. I don't remember exactly how to get there. But I remember one of the experiences I had there that somebody for the game department brought us a cub bear. And somehow I ended up by taking care of this bear, and I built a pen for it. And every night I would take the door off the pen and come upstairs and sleep with me in the barracks. And it got so it would grab people and stuff, especially the women. It liked to grab women by the legs. And so we took it up to Packsack Lookout, and the young fellow there was running the lookout, so we left it with him. And it immediately took the shingles off the roof, and we had to go up to Packsack and reshingle the roof. And the bear ended up at Woodland Park, I understand. His name was Nuisance, by the way. Then we serviced Squally Jim lookout. We went up through Furdale and up the old CC Road and to get to Squally Jim, and it was on that high ridge north of Labam. A lady was on that lookout for years, and it seems to me like her name was Effie, but I may be wrong. Effie somebody. But she's the one, I understand, that the day I left for college, one of those years, I went to WSU, the day I left, she stuffed her stove full of paper and lit the fire and set the world on fire up there, and they had a big project fire. And all I did was hear stories about that because I wasn't there. We also serviced the Trap Creek lookout. I was up there several times with Fernley Long, and he was the district administrator at that time down there. And we went up and did some repairs, and I don't even remember what we did, but I was up there several times. Remember one day we seen 2 bear from the lookout. Then after I got back from the service, I went to Elbe. I was the forest practice forester, then the fire control assistant up there. And we had, one time, a total of 9 lookouts for a short period of time. I'll start with the one farther south was the Cosmos lookout. Cosmos was on the ridge just northeast of Morton. We had 9 lookouts up there, by the way, because there's a lot of logging activity. Lots of logging activity. The ground was broken up so that the scene area map from these lookouts didn't cover a lot of territory. And also, we was in a lightning zone. Every time there was a lightning storm went through, we caught it. I remember one time we had like 18 lightning strikes one day. The Cosmos lookout, get back to that, was pretty easy to drive to. A good logging road went all the way. The first one I got introduced to when I got to LB, the Bill Bartels, my boss at the time, said go to Cosmos and tar the roof. So I took a bucket of tar and went up there, and it was a 90-foot tower, steel tower without any guy lines. The roof hung out farther than the guardrail in this little 8x8 cubicle. And the lady there, Vivian Bridges was her name, held my feet while I climbed up onto the roof and tarred this ridiculous thing. and it had a little tube. You went up through a ladder inside this tube on the outside of the tower, and it was quite a challenge. The wind blew real hard up there, and we had a weather station there. After she retired and went on, one of the gals, Eileen Evans was her name, spent quite a few years up there and did an excellent job of manning that lookout and taking the weather. This was a lookout that each morning and each evening had a bed check to be sure that everybody else was all right amongst the 8 lookouts. The next one to the east was Kiona Peak. This was right above Randall on a rock. The rock was so small that the corners of the house hung over the edge. It was tied on by some guy wire cables that was anchored down in the woods there someplace. Kiona Peak, you went up St. Regis Road up Minnow Creek and took a cat road and went as far as the pickup would take you. And the rest of it was packing up a switchback, and we'd cut the wood down in the woods there ways and pack it up on pack boards up in Stalker Woodshed. It was always a lady that manned that lookout, Kenna Romack, who now works for the Department of Natural Resources, was there when I first got introduced to Kiona, and I remember she kept calling me somebody else's name because they'd been there first, and so it helped train her. I have the sad story I have about this lookout that I was directed after we built another one to go up and burn the lookout down one fall, and I took a can of gas and went up there by myself, poured gas over the building, and touched it off, and it was a very sad moment. There's a lot of memories from that spot, and I've never been back to the place, probably never go back. Once in a while when I drive down the highway going to the White Pass Highway, I keep looking to see if I can spot that particular rock, and I'm not quite sure which one it is. To the east of that, I don't know what year it was, but took over some more ground that had been protected by the Forest Service, and we had inherited the old Watch Mountain lookout. And it was about a 3-mile trail, a pack into this particular lookout, and it was set on the ground right at the end of the ridge that overlooked Silver Creek. I believe the creek's name was Silver Creek, east of Randall a ways there. And we, after a year or two of packing stuff for this 3 miles, we took a bulldozer and built us a cat trail so we could drive a pickup or a 4-wheel drive rig into the lookout. And this was quite an experience. I remember we was up there in May, and there was still snow laying on the north slopes, and I was out ahead of the bulldozer marking trail for him and ran across a cougar loping across one of these snowfields. Another time I recall that the girl who was on the lookout, she was a college gal and I don't remember her name, called and wanted me to bring up the supplies and bring up her rifle, her .22 rifle, because there was a cougar hanging around and had her spooked. We kind of poo-pooed the whole thing, but I took her .22 up there, and she wouldn't go out of the building. She was afraid, and so I took her water can and hiked down to the spring, which was down the trail and then over the bank down in a hole where there was water dripped out of the bank, and to fill her water can. While I was sitting there waiting for the can to get full, I looked up and there was a cougar laying on a log up there watching me. And that's a funny feeling. And I loaded the pack on my back and headed up the trail, and if I looked back without stopping, it was following me, sniffing along like a dog. If I stopped, it would jump off the trail and it followed me almost to the lookout where I could hear the voices before it gave up its pursuit and went on its own business. But kind of a funny anecdote to this is that she wanted to know if the rifle shot straight, and so we took it out and put a target on a stump, and you could see the bullet come out, and it completely missed the stump. It kind of came out at an angle and went sailing off into the woods. It wasn't much of a rifle, but maybe it would have scared the cougar. I'm not sure. I believe that we burnt that one down too. I didn't do it, but somebody else did. We replaced that with a wooden tower, one of the new modern ones, and we also called it Watch Mountain, between Kiona Peak and Watch Mountain in the mid-60s. I'm the one that drew the scene area map for that particular one. I went up there on a stump and where the lookout was going to go and drew the map and took it in, and that's what the map was based on when they made the thing for the fire. What do they call that? I don't remember.
Osborne Firefinder.
The firefinder, right? The Osborne Firefinder. That it was my drawing that did that. This was a big clear cut right on top of the ridge between the two lookouts, between Kiona Peak and the old Watch Mountain lookout. Easy to drive to. Didn't have to worry about snowfields and four-wheel drive and stuff. And that was a very beautiful place. You could see half the world from there. We then we had the Ladd Mountain Lookout, which was up in the Ladd logging works at the head of the West Fork of the Tilton River and the Little Nisqually River on the ridge between. And it was also a beautiful spot because there was so much wildlife up there. I can always remember sitting up in the lookout and doing whatever I had to do and seeing the deer walking around underneath the building, checking my pickup out and so forth. We had a number of ladies from Eatonville that worked that lookout. I don't remember how long they was. I don't remember how long they was there or anything. I remember one thing we had. Most of these young ladies had a dog with them, and the dog that the one lady had up there fell off the lookout, and she called and all upset, but by the time somebody got there it was too late. And I found her another dog and took it to her a few days later and helped heal, I think. But that dog turned out to be a monster. It got a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be, and I'm not sure whatever happened to it. That lookout, when we took the lookouts down, when they replaced them with the air patrol, that one was left for the loggers so they could use it when there was a lightning bust or something that they would run up there and where they could see the country. We also had the National Lookout, which was just south of the town of National. It looked you could look up the Nisqually Valley and up the Minnow Creek drainage and over into the Ladd country from the National Lookout. It was taken down in the early 60s and a new one built. And I only remember one funny incident at that lookout. Everything else was pretty routine. One morning where the valleys were all full of fog, but the sun was shining on top of the hills, and I went roaring up there with some supplies or something unexpected. They didn't know I was coming, and the last little pitch in the road is real steep, so you don't hear anybody coming to you. They pop right up in the yard. When I went roaring up in the yard, why this young lady had her girlfriend up there, and they were sunbathing out there on the ground on a blanket. And you never seen two people move so fast in your life. I wish they had a camera. It was really startling. When they stood down in the woods and we communicated through the trees where I was going to put her supplies and stuff.
Was that a tower lookout?
Yes.
How tall?
I think it was 40 feet. I'm not sure. I think all the new ones were about 40 feet. And but they couldn't see nothing because the sun was only shining just on top of the peaks, and so they were taking advantage of this and sunbathing. But I sure surprised them. And I know her mother, and every once in a while I mention that. We get a big laugh out of it. Then we had the Ohop Lookout, which is just east of the town of Eatonville. You can see it from town. In fact, my sister manned that for a while.
And her name was?
Carol DeVicchio. And she was married to one of the policemen in town. It was one of the old towers. It was taller than the others, maybe 60 feet. It had a little cabin on the ground, about to fall apart. But it overlooked the valley there, and the Weyerhaeuser's logging works in the Michelle drainage, quite important. East of that, we built a new lookout, again in the early 60s, on Puyallup Ridge. It was the tallest ridge there was before you ran right into Mount Rainier. And you could see that if you had binoculars from around Eatonville. There are places that was way back there. I always remember a young fella manned that most of the time, and he kept a tripod with a camera setting on it because he was going to catch Mount Rainier when it blew. he was determined it was going to blow while he was there. Well, he was so close. I think if it blew while he was there, he would have never remembered it. But it never got a picture. But that was a beautiful spot. And it was quite a trek to drive up there. It was a good road, but it was a long way. You had to go up either through St. Regis's Capalison operation and up their logging roads, or over the hill from National on the DNR roads and cross country. I don't know. It was a long trek to hook up with the logging roads to get up there. And then the farthest, the lookout that was furthest north was Electron, and it was up on the Puyallup River drainage. And Electron is the name of the area there where they had the flume that picked up water for power. It was for, I don't remember all the details anymore, but there was a power plant down there that got the water from up in there, and Electron is what they called the little community. I don't remember a lot about that lookout. That Hiram Black, who is not with us anymore, was the man who serviced that lookout. I vaguely remember some of the names, but I don't know which first goes with which last for who was up there. It was kind of a sad day. The lookouts were really a big part of our operation up there because of all the logging that was going on and the many lightning strikes and fires that we had. And it was kind of a sad day when they started replacing the lookouts with air patrol. And my job was to go out and take these lookouts down and burn them up. And I cut down, the first one I cut down was the new Cosmos lookout, which is only a few years old. I spent a lot of memorable times up there during lightning strikes and this and that. And I learned my lesson real fast. I went up there with a chainsaw, and I was going to take the lookout down, unhook the guy lines, was going to saw off two of the legs and let it tip and then go back and fall just like you'd fall a tree. The first cut I made was a little low, and I didn't realize the steel pipe or steel peg went up so high in that leg. And I sawed right into it and completely took all the teeth right off of the chain in the chainsaw. But I fell that one and salvaged all the material and packed it down. They told me to burn it up, but I couldn't see burning up the good plywood and the good 8x8s and stuff. We had a employee who was burned out and spent a lot of time in the hospital, and some of us got together and built her a house from the scrap material from a couple of these lookouts. And that was quite a project. We had $900 in all this scrap material and built a house. I cut that one down. I cut the National Lookout down, and the Ohawk Lookout I cut down. The others, some of them was left, some of them were burned, like I say, and some of them were left for the loggers to use until their area was reforested. I can remember a couple incidents that happened that they'd had a fatality somewhere down in around Raymond on a lookout that was too airtight, and the lookout went to sleep with the burner going or something, and died from lack of oxygen. And so they made the new lookout with the firefinder was in the middle of the room, and there was a vent underneath the firefinder in the little cabinet that you could not close, so there was always air. And we'd taken the young lady up to the Ladd lookout, and they had just went up, the people from the shop had just went up the day before and put in a new gas system, new gas bottle, new pipe and stuff. And I went up there and we packed all of her stuff up into the lookout, and I got down on my hands and knees and was going to show her how to light the heater. I went downstairs and turned on the bottle, and you turned the little handle. I got up there and struck a match and burned our hair and our eyelashes and stuff off. Whoever had hooked us up hadn't hooked it up. They just run the pipe up into the building, and the pipe was sitting there open, and the gas was just flowing out into the room. And I always think it was a good thing I lit the match when I did, and didn't wait a little while, because we might not be around to tell this story. That was kind of exciting. I remember one time on the Cosmos lookout, I was there when lightning hit the lookout, and the old green copper wire that went around as a lightning arrestor around the building, when the smoke cleared, why it was all shiny copper color. It took all the green off. I don't quite know what the process was, but it was pretty exciting. An awful noise. The lookouts were a great experience, and like I say, it was a real sad day when they changed them with air patrol. It was the end of an era as far as I was concerned.
Well, you make it sound like it was almost a family operation with you and these lookouts.
It was kind of, we felt like a family, right? Like I say, the girl on Cosmos Lookout, she would call first thing in the morning, before anybody else was up and around, to call all the lookouts to be sure that everybody was okay. She'd call them again in the evening to be sure everybody's okay. She would pass the weather information to them, and most of these young ladies, most of them were college girls, and most of them knew one another from someplace. Most of them was from the town of Eatonville or around, and I knew most of the mothers and dads and